Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. It's a new day since we had our last live show a couple weeks ago. Marijuana is now legally sold to any adult over the age of 21 here in Oregon. I'm so happy about that. And it opens the door to all kinds of new jobs and companies, and hopefully we can change the whole economic paradigm with hemp fuel, fiber, and food. Sitting next to me is Mr. Time for Hemp, Casper Leach. Standing by in the wings is Mr. John Cornett, ready to play some groovy tunes. And we'll be back in just a moment with our hemp news segment right after our infamous leaves. Yo.
I feel the force.
All right, as we said a moment ago, or as I said, medical marijuana has been legal for some time, since March of last year, but October 1st this year, a week ago right now, marijuana for adults became legal. Medical marijuana dispensaries in Oregon that are licensed by the Oregon Health Authority have been allowed to sell adult social or recreational cannabis, and they remain busy throughout the week after opening their doors to adult consumers last Thursday. The Oregon legislature approved tax-free recreational sales through medicinal cannabis dispensaries through the end of the year. Then they can continue to sell throughout 2016 with a 25% tax. And then they think by the end of 2016, the first of 2017, the new regulatory laws of adults will kick in, and that'll be a $35 an ounce tax on flowers in those new shops that haven't opened yet, and a $10 an ounce tax on leaves and trim. Many of the shops opened at the stroke of midnight last Thursday morning and were greeted with long lines of excited customers. Those lines continued all weekend with thousands of customers checking out the shops. They said that Oregon had $11 million in sales in the very first week. That compares with $5 million in sales in the first week in Colorado. By the way, Colorado has about twice the population of Oregon. And it also compares with $2 million worth of sales in the first month across the river in Washington State. So we've kicked off an exciting new era here. Back in Washington, D.C., we're seeing some changes. A new package of spending bills from the United States Senate intended to keep the federal government operational for the next year includes several positive changes in marijuana laws. The bills were filed on Tuesday by the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, and they've just been uploaded to Congress's website. The new spending package puts forth by the top Senate appropriator, quote, includes, well, everything marijuana law reformers could have reasonably hoped for this year. We won bipartisan votes on all of these issues this year on either the House floor, the Senate Appropriations Committee, or both. So this is a rare case of congressional leadership actually listening to their members and to the American people. Just a few short years ago, politicians used to jump all over each other to be seen as the toughest on drugs. But now that polls consistently show that a growing majority of Americans support legalization of cannabis. More elected officials are beginning to realize that scaling back failed prohibition policies is not only the right thing to do, but it's politically smart. If enacted, the United States Senate bill would prevent the Department of Justice, or DOJ, and the Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA, from spending money to interfere with the implementation of state medical marijuana laws. Similar language was enacted last year and is currently the law. It would prevent the DOJ and the DEA from spending money to interfere with the implementation of state industrial hemp research programs. And again, similar language was enacted last year and is currently the law. It would allow doctors with the Department of Veterans Affairs to recommend medical marijuana for military veterans and prevent the VA from denying services to veterans because they are medical cannabis patients in accordance with state law. It would also prevent the federal government from punishing banks for doing business with state legal marijuana providers. That's very important, and we need banking reform on marijuana legal stores. And it will allow the District of Columbia to move forward with enacting marijuana sales regulations that the mayor of D.C. and local lawmakers have indicated they support, but have been stymied from implementing due to congressional interference. Senate leaders are currently negotiating with House Appropriations Committee leaders and are expected to reach a compromise spending package sometime before government funding under the current law runs out on December 11th. Also out of Washington, D.C., the total number of marijuana-related arrests nationwide rose in 2014 despite the implementation of legalization laws in Washington and Colorado, according to data released this week by the FBI. According to the 2014 Uniform Crime Report, police made over 700,000 arrests for marijuana-related offenses, some 7,500 more arrests than were reported in 2013. Of those arrests, over 88% were charged with possession only, a 2% increase since 2013. Marijuana arrests comprise nearly half, or 45%, of all drug-related arrests nationwide at a cost of nearly $500 million. That's just in the criminal justice system cost, not on the cost in ruined lives and destroyed families. In the two states of Colorado and Washington that have legalized marijuana-related activities, cannabis-related arrests plummeted in 2014, indicating that other jurisdictions are prioritizing arrests at a time when the majority of the public is opposed to criminalization. Recent changes in marijuana laws in Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. are not reflected in the 2014 arrest data, but will be reflected in it from this year. As in previous years, marijuana possession arrests were most likely to occur in the Midwest and the southeastern regions of the United States. Far fewer marijuana arrests were reported in the western region of the United States, where possessing the plant has largely been either legalized or decriminalized. The total number of marijuana arrests for 2014 is about 20% lower than the totals for 2007, when the police made an all-time high of over 872,000 cannabis-related arrests. Down south in California, Governor Jerry Brown on Saturday vetoed a bill which would have created a new penalty for making hash oil with chemicals like butane. Brown said the state already has enough laws and prison overcrowding problems and doesn't need to make the problem worse. California has seen a rise in explosions, as we have here in Oregon and Washington, and fires caused by the extraction of cannabis concentrates using volatile solvents like butane. But it's already against law to make butane hash oil in California, and arson and criminal negligence are also crimes there. The bill that Jerry Brown vetoed, Assembly Bill 849, would have created a new crime carrying prison sentences of up to 6 years for BHO blasters who hurt others. The bill passed the California Assembly unanimously on August 31st, but Governor Jerry Brown vetoed it and 8 other measures, blasting reactionary, get-tough laws that result in prison overcrowding but don't do a damn thing to improve public safety. Each of this bill creates a new crime, usually by finding a novel way to characterize and criminalize conduct that is already prescribed, Governor Brown said. This multiplication and particularization of criminal behavior creates increasing complexity without commensurate benefit. Over the last several decades, California's criminal code has grown to more than 5,000 separate provisions covering almost every conceivable form of human behavior. During the same period, our jails and prisons have exploded in population. Before we keep going down this road, I think we should pause and reflect on how our system of criminal justice could be made more human, more just, and more cost-effective, end quote, Governor Jerry Brown of California said. So up in Canada, the demand for hemp has grown to the point that it's exceeding the supply in Canada. Most of the demand comes from the United States. Smoothies, cereals, hemp seed milk, salad dressings, and biodiesel fuel are a few of the most popular uses for industrial hemp. Protein powder is another common product, and it's now catching on with the general public rather than being limited to its previous niche as in the bodybuilding community. So hopefully our farmers here in the United States can start supplying that. The psychoactive ingredient in marijuana has been found to delay organ rejection in mice. THC appears to have decreased early-stage rejection of organs and could be a useful anti-rejection therapy for transplant patients, according to scientists. The researcher Mitzi Nagakati said, quote, "We're excited to demonstrate for the first time that cannabinoid receptors play an important role in the prolongation of rejection of a foreign graft by suppressing immune response in the recipient. This opens up a new area of research that would lead to better approaches to prevent transplant rejection, as well as to treat other inflammatory diseases," end quote. The findings were published in the Journal of Leukocyte Biology by researchers from the University of South Carolina School of Medicine. Researchers noted that previous studies have shown the activation of cannabinoid receptors on immune cells triggers potent immune suppression, but the role of cannabinoids in transplantation to prevent organ rejection hasn't been investigated. The authors wrote, quote, that in the current study, we tested the effects of THC on the suppression of host versus graft disease, as well as rejection of skill allografts, end quote. THC treatment increased stem graft survival significantly, reduced T-cell proliferation, and decreased early-state rejection, according to the findings. The authors wrote, "Together, our research shows for the first time to our knowledge that targeting cannabinoid receptors may provide a novel treatment modality to attenuate host versus graft and prevent allograft rejection. More and more research is identifying potential beneficial effects of substances contained in marijuana, but a major challenge has been identifying the molecular pathways involved," end quote, said John Wary, deputy editor of the Journal of Leukocyte Biology. He went on and said, quote, "These new studies point to important roles for the cannabinoid receptors as targets that might be exploited using approaches that refine how we think about substances derived from marijuana," end quote. You know, I've helped thousands of people on transplant lists get their medical marijuana permits, and I've seen literally 1,000 people that have been kicked off of the transplant lists because of their use of medical marijuana. Even just mentioning it has led to kidney and liver transplant patients being kicked off of the transplant list. I have seen literally 1,000 people die because they've been kicked off of the transplant list for using medical marijuana. And now the new research shows that it actually helps these poor patients. Just really tragic what prohibition has done to these people. And I just, makes me almost want to cry. But our next story is out of Montreal, Canada. Chronic pain patients who use herbal cannabis daily for 1 year report reduced discomfort and increased quality of life compared to controls, and do not experience an increased risk of serious side effects, according to clinical data published online ahead of the print Journal of Pain. Researchers at McGill University in Montreal assessed the long-term health of 216 medicinal cannabis patients with non-cancer chronic pain who consume standardized daily doses of herbal cannabis, compared to 215 controls or chronic pain sufferers who did not use cannabis. The subjects in the study were approved by Health Canada to legally use medicinal cannabis and consumed on average 2.5 grams of herb per day, typically via inhalation or vaporization. The investigators reported that daily cannabis consumers possessed no greater risk than non-users of experiencing serious adverse events. Specifically, researchers identified no significant adverse changes in consumers' cognitive skills, pulmonary function, or blood work following 1 year of daily cannabis consumption. Medical cannabis consumers did report elevated risk of experiencing non-serious adverse events like a cough, dizziness, paranoia, compared to the controls. However, the authors classified these events to be mild to moderate. Pain patients who used cannabis reported a reduced sense of pain compared to controls, as well as a mitigation of anxiety, depression, and fatigue. The study's authors concluded quality controlled herbal cannabis when used by cannabis experienced patients as part of a monitored treatment program over 1 year appears to have a reasonable safety profile, end quote. The study is one of the first to ever assess the long-term safety and efficacy of medicinal cannabis. Prior health review of patients receiving cannabis monthly from the U.S. federal government as part of the Compassionate Investigational New Drug Program similarly reported that it possesses therapeutical efficacy and an acceptable side effect profile. This study, Cannabis for the Management of Pain, an Assessment of Safety Study, appears in this month's journal of the magazine Pain. That's the end of our hemp news segment tonight. We're going to jump over to Mr. John Cornett. How you doing, John?
I'm doing really good, Paul. You know, I'm not surprised that we discovered that cannabis, particularly in high-grade form like cannabis oil, is effective on. I heard the CBGs actually mimic stem cells. The CBGs, the cannabidiol, mimic stem cells.
Yeah, it's just tragic. I've seen so many people I've known, Tim Guerin in Seattle, so many people, I can't think of all the names of people who died because they were kicked off the transplant list.
The CBCs, how does that call CBC, right?
Cannabichromene, yeah.
Yeah, it grows new brain tissue, new bone marrow. So
yeah, it's amazing.
We know this. How come they don't? Well, I've been worked by the rain, kicked by start that over. Been worked by the rain, kicked by the. My head stoved in, but still on feet. I can't remember the words now. I should have had that hit before I came in. Been worked by the rain, driven by the snow, drunk and dirty. Don't you know that I'm still? There we go. Willing. I was out on the road late last night, see my pretty Alice in every headlight. Alice, Alice. And I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, to Hatchapee to Tonopah, driven every kind of rig that's ever been made, driven the back road so I wouldn't get way. And if you give me weed, white sand wine, show me a sign, I'll be willing to be moving. Been kicked by the wind, robbed by the sleet, had my head stoved in, but I'm still on my feet and I'm still willing. Well, smokes and folks in Mexico got baked by the sun every time I go down to Mexico. But I'm still willing. And I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, to Hatchapee to Tonopah, driven every kind of rig that's ever been made, driven the back road so I wouldn't get way. And if you give me weed, white sand wine, show me a sign, I'll be willing to be moving. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Hempstock Festival coming up. When is your set, John? Do you know?
I open the show.
All right, on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll be ready by then.
All right, sounds good. Hey, welcome, Casper.
Happy
good
Friday.
to see you.
Thank you.
Welcome back, viewers. If you have a question or comment for us tonight about ending marijuana prohibition, restoring hemp, or helping medical marijuana patients, then give us a call at that number there on your screen. It's 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442.
I saw our governor with all of our favorite stoners and a big happy picture this week when she was signing in the legislation. Did she know that she was hanging out with half the heads of Oregon when she did that?
I guess so.
Well, good. We love our governor. She should come out and smoke with us, right?
I've never seen her smoke or know of her directly doing that, but I did work in her office back in the 1997 legislative session, so I can vouch for her.
Or maybe she used to sneak a toke.
No, I don't think so. But again, if you have a question for us, you can call us at that number there on your screen. We're gearing up for our Hempstock Festival next week. It's our first ever one this late in the year. Of course, we didn't have our approval for our permit until the 28th of August, and then we didn't have our dates until about the 10th of September. So here it is, just a month ago that we got the dates, and now we have another week before our event. So we'll be down at Portland's Waterfront Park, right by the base, the west end of the Hawthorne Bridge next weekend, October 17th and 18th, and you're welcome to come out and check that out. We do have a phone call. Welcome to the show, caller. Hello.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Pretty well. How are you?
I'm good. I really appreciate your show and your effort, and I was just curious. So the THC content in marijuana that they represent at the stores, is it accurate, and how do they measure that?
It's a chromatography process where they split the components up into different constituencies, and so that is the one. It's an electronic device that they use, and I think it's pretty accurate. The problem is, the content can vary from one side of a bud to another side of the bud. So, but I think it's fairly, relatively accurate.
Okay, it just seems like it's a stretch that they could, claim it's 92.4%. It's really down refinement.
Yeah, for something that high in THC, you're talking about an extract, obviously. They're
well, like the wax or
right, or the RSO or Phoenix Tears oil.
Concerned.
That has a real high concentration of cannabis.
Okay, yeah, it's just amazing that they could pinpoint it down to just such a fine number. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they do. They've got chemists who train to do this stuff, and newer and better performing equipment all the time. In Oregon and in the other states where it's legalized, you have to have it tested and labeled. But once again, there's variations in the flowers and in the different flowers on the same plant. So I think it's pretty close, though, to being accurate for the whole sample.
Okay, that's a good answer. I appreciate that. And it's all about, I guess it's about science and chemistry. And
yeah, when you talk about an extract, I think it's probably very, very accurate because the extract's all mixed together and you're going to get the same. But when you're talking about organic cannabis, then it can vary from one part of the plant to another.
Is testing mandatory yet in the state?
Yeah, it's mandatory, and they have to test for insecticides and mold and mildew as well.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, sure, yeah. The laws, I'm sure, are still developing.
It's a good thing.
Too.
I don't know how much insecticide, mold, and mildew I've smoked over the years.
I understand. Okay, I appreciate you guys' time and information.
Still better than tobacco.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they've shown that marijuana smokers have less lung disease than people who never smoked anything at all, except for bronchitis or that cough and phlegm. Smoking really hot smoke destroys the hair linings, the cilia in the lungs, and so that tends to cause bronchitis and a buildup of phlegm. But that's another issue. We have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi.
Hey.
I heard on the news this week that a gentleman hit and killed a pedestrian and that they were saying that he was high on marijuana, but they were going to test him. How do they test, and how accurate is, and what's the timetable? Because just because you smoked 2 hours ago doesn't mean you're high, but it might still be in your bloodstream. So,
Yeah.
and by the way, Paul, nice hairdo.
Thank you. I just got a haircut. Under these
Yeah,
bright lights,
looks good
my
tonight.
son said, your hair looks like it's all white, but in person it still doesn't quite look that way yet, but I'm getting there pretty quick.
I spent all day working on my hair. You didn't say a thing about it.
Well, you don't have any hair.
I cut it back. It was getting a little long. My two sons and I
Oh.
went out for a haircut yesterday.
No, I'm talking about, okay. Anyway, how did they test that?
There are a few ways, and the most accurate way is the most intrusive, and that's a blood test. A blood test will tell you how much active THC is in your blood. And so up in Washington State, they established a 5 nanogram limit of active THC in the blood, which is particularly low. A lot of people think that that's a therapeutic level for most medical patients and doesn't have a psychoactive effect. Pharmacologist, toxicologist, Dr. Philip E. Levesque, who passed away earlier this year but helped co-host this show for many years and helped me in many, many ways. He said that he thought impairment usually begins for people who aren't experienced users at about 9 milligrams per milliliter of blood, and for experienced users more like 12 or 15. But your body metabolizes that pretty quickly, and so once it's metabolized, it can be stored in your fat or go into your urine, and so that doesn't really show impairment or current use. The only way to really show that is through a blood test. And so often in Washington, they will arrest people, take them into a hospital, and have their blood drawn for these sorts of arrests. I haven't been made aware of many types of arrests like that here in Oregon. But there are also other new tests that test the saliva in your mouth or swab that. And of course there are hair tests as well. There was evidence this week that those hair tests aren't accurate either. So again, the only accurate way is to do a blood test, and that's very intrusive. I wouldn't want them drawing my blood.
So this young man, it turned out he had also been drinking, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I asked myself, anyway.
It's probably the
Mark,
drinking, more so than the marijuana. There's no telling them.
My question is that, okay, so they draw his blood, but he smoked 2 hours ago. So it's in his system, but he's not high. And so they're going to force a blood draw?
Yeah, that's what they do. And if you refuse that, then that's considered admission of guilt under most driving under the influence of intoxicant laws.
So they take you to the hospital, though. They don't do it themselves.
They don't take you into the jail and stick you with an AIDS-tainted needle, I hope. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for your show, guys.
Hey, you're welcome.
And the odd
Have a good
thing
one.
is the members of the Congress and the Senate who pass these laws into reality, they don't have to piss test.
And they don't have a clue what they're talking about either, for that matter. But we have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller. Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
So I was just wondering, what is stopping medical dispensaries from just going purely recreational during this recreational period and turning their backs on patients, because they can charge so much more for recreational right now?
Competition?
Well, there's really nothing that can stop them from doing that. They could make the decision to go for the OLCC license. Right now, the only way they can sell cannabis is to have that Oregon Health Authority medical marijuana dispensary license. And so that's good for them till the end of next year, 2016. So the legislature will probably look at ways so stores can service both clientele. But again, they are charging quite a bit more for adult social users than they are for medical patients. However, medical patients tend to use quite a bit more cannabis as well. So I don't think most store owners want to alienate either market, and so they're going to try to do both. But there's nothing stopping anyone from staying in business or closing their doors or serving one market or the other.
Because I wouldn't be surprised that at the end of this, the OLCC will just decide to turn all the dispensaries into recreational stores.
Yeah, they
and then
can't do that.
completely
They can't do
shutting
that.
down medical dispensaries in general. Where will the patients get affordable medicine? I mean,
Well, we
where
can
is
grow our own. That's one thing. The law is very expensive. There need to be a lot of changes. You know, we can just keep working to make the system better and better. We have to participate in the political process, let our legislators know. We saw, you know, the legislator set up this tax-free sales period, which is a real blessing, and it's allowed these businesses to create a lot of jobs. But we need to keep patients first and foremost in mind. You know, when we passed the medical marijuana laws starting back in the 1990s, 96 in California, 98 here in Oregon, Washington, Arizona, and Washington, D.C., it was to take the patients off the battlefield in the war on drugs. And so that hasn't always worked. As I mentioned before, I've seen many patients that were subjected to torture, taken off a transplant list just because of their use or contemplation of use of medical marijuana. So we just have to keep fighting and educating people, and eventually cannabis should be cheap and plentiful. It grows on big trees, and so it should be cheap. And I look forward to the day when we can go out and get a $10 ounce again, but I guess a lot of these store owners don't look forward to that as much as I do.
You know, like
That
I
would
said,
be
I
amazing.
think
I hope
competition will
everything
do a
works
lot
out
of
for
it too. I've noticed that since the first of the month, advertising in the Willamette Weekly, there seems to be about 8 dispensaries in every 3 square mile that you walk, and eventually they're going to realize that they're going to saturate the market and have to maintain some kind of income, and they'll also hang on to the medical marijuana industry and those dollars that come through their doors as what they call bread and butter accounts. So I think that'll also play out in time as well too.
Well, anyway, thanks for your call. You know, I've grown my own marijuana since the medical marijuana law went into effect back in about 2001. I've been able to help lots of other patients do that. And because of that, I haven't gone out to buy any medical marijuana at any dispensary ever. But last Thursday, I went out and bought 3 joints for $10 on the day that recreational marijuana became legal. And we made a little video around that event. So here is that video. Stay tuned.
Buying marijuana in public?
Over the counter at a cash register.
What's the world coming to?
So is that video ready to roll? I was told it was. It's great to finally be able to see legal cannabis and to buy some legally as an adult. You know, I've been growing my own, so I haven't really gone to any of these dispensaries before. This is the first time I've ever bought marijuana over a counter at a cash register. And it's what we've been working for many, many years, and I'm just happy the day has finally come. You know, I asked for a Jack Herer joint here, thinking I recognize that name. He would be so proud to be here today. There's no doubt about it. He petitioned hundreds, maybe thousands of hours here in Oregon. His book was written right here in Oregon for the first edition, so this is an exciting day.
Well, I figured I'd probably be doing this in about 1972, but it's taken a few years longer. I've been going to Amsterdam for a very long time and buying recreational and social marijuana over the counter and sharing it. And we've got a long way to go before we're at that level, but it's really great to see a good start here today.
It feels great. You know, it's a real surreal moment, you know, talking to you about the progress that we've made and really the long, hard fight over decades. Yeah, I think about people like LK, Jim Gregg, Jim Clark, you know, people that put in decades to this fight, who aren't with us, who weren't able to see a day like today. And it means a lot for a lot of people. When I was in high school, I first won a debate about marijuana legalization back in like 1995. In college, I helped decriminalize marijuana in Columbia, Missouri, and my goal was to help legalize the state by 2020. You know, and Colorado and Washington legalized in 2012, and then Oregon, Alaska, and DC in 2014. And so to have a day like today, it's really a day for celebration, a day for reflection. But I know in my heart that despite the improvements we still need to make here in Oregon, that we're going to remain vigilant and we're going to have a law that can be the model for the rest of the country, and we can stop this insane and barbaric practice of arresting and jailing people for cannabis all across the country. So a great day. Each step of the way has been very surreal.
A lot of people have been waiting a long time to see this happen. It's a historical moment that we're all finally able to enjoy, and it is showing the freedom that we all should have and the right that we all should have to recreate, not only medicate.
It's unbelievable. We thought that this day would never going to come to reality, actually. But we're really happy, and we're happy for the people of Oregon, you know, that you went through the ballot and you succeed, and this is the result. So we're really excited to be here.
It's the way it should be. It's too bad it's taken so long, and the commuting is going to kill me down from Canada. But it's a true pleasure to be able to act like a normal person and get the product when you want it.
I'm so excited. Y libre la planta, libre la gente, libre todos.
Free. Fighting for legalization. This is a worldwide process that sooner or later will come to every single place and every single spot in the world, because it's a medicine and it's just insane that it has to be illegal. So we're really excited. This is a key moment in history, I guess.
Es alimento, así que tenemos que cuidar ese alimento para todos.
Yeah, I think that here in Oregon, we're going to show, you know, the cities and counties in eastern Oregon that have banned marijuana businesses, that you can have regulated sales, create jobs, generate revenue. The sky's not going to fall, and that's going to carry over to more states, and more states are going to both legalize adult use cannabis but also medicinal cannabis as well. Each of those states that comes into the legalized realm, that adds additional senators and representatives who represent people who are living in states that have legalized marijuana of some sort. So I think Congressman Blumenauer believes 5 years. I think within 10 for sure. We're going to repeal federal prohibition. It's going to be left up to the states, and that Oregon with home cultivation, keeping medical, no per se DUI, low taxes, relatively low barriers to entry. We're going to have the best policy in the country, and unless states look at what we've done and even improve upon what we've done. But I think in many ways we're going to be a model for everybody. And then the United States, looking at a global sphere, the United States has been the one pursuing the global drug war, the global war on marijuana. And once the United States ends prohibition, I think we can expect most of the world to do the same.
You know, the biggest thing is to educate people, educate your politicians, educate your family, educate your friends that marijuana is a good thing. We need hemp for our environment. We need cannabis for many different physical issues. So if the more alcohol we can replace with cannabis, the better off we'll all be. Well, that was from last Thursday, October 1st, the day that marijuana became legal. We had Mike Bafari and Gaston Durana, friends of mine from Argentina that I'm working with in Uruguay and South America, and here in Oregon as well. They've been guests on this show. They were there, and so.
Did it make you feel all excited to part with your money in an environment and buy marijuana over the counter, and like you were buying like candy or pop? Did it make you feel more?
Yeah, it made me feel more. I feel more now.
Good. More excited, more relaxed,
more excited, more happy.
There you go, more happy.
I'm more happy.
There you go, happy.
And that's a good thing. So, you know, our Hempstock Festival is coming up. Anthony Johnson, Mike Bafari, Gaston Durana, Casper, me, John Cornette, and many others like John Trudell and Bad Dog, the Herbivores, Bingy and the Seventh Seal, Mac and Dubs, Smoking Section, the list goes on and on. Bad Habitat, I can't name them all. But if you want to find out more, go to hempstock.org. That's hempstock.org. And our fine team of videographers has put together a nifty little video about it featuring the Herbivore song. Let's watch that video. It's great.
Put us to the test. So it's time to exercise our rights and put on a hemp fest. And we'll educate the youth who soon will rule the land. It's just a matter of time, and it's time to take a stand. Cause it's a losing battle, one that money can win. Been going on for years, just keeps right on going. Like a Cold War with the commies, prohibition and the like. You can throw us all in prison, but you cannot win the fight. Cause it's a losing battle. Time to wake up. Yeah.
Oh, we cut off the last screen. Darn it. Okay, well, so it goes. They had Rod Platt, who was cameraman here on our show, on that last screen. There were a number of people there at the very end who passed away this year, and so they're part of our team, got us where we are. Some of them in that video died some time ago. Oh, there it is. Dr. Levesque and Rod Platt. Great people. Sorry to miss you. Rest in peace, bros. But do we still have a caller standing by? Let's see if that caller's still there. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello.
Hey.
Paul.
Hey.
What do you think, or what are your plans for a commercial license to grow?
What are my plans for what?
To grow commercially. To make
I'm doing it, man.
Killing oil. To grow plants.
I'm doing it. I harvested last night. This morning between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. I was about 10 miles east of Bend harvesting marijuana, about 500 plants.
Well, I think he meant for industrial purposes.
Are you talking about industrial for oil?
Yes.
Well, we're doing that as well. So we're going to show that high THC cannabis, the most productive medicinal recreational strains produce 20 times more oil and more than twice as much fiber. And so we're working on that academic project. The folks at the Oregon State University have said that they can't have their graduate students work on this program because somehow they think that might endanger their federal funding. And they've actually curtailed Andrea Herman, who'll be at the Hempstock Festival next week, from giving certain lectures in her industrial hemp class that she's been doing for about the past 4 years. Once she started trying to get a couple of graduate students to do their thesis on our industrial hemp biofuel project, they reviewed her curricula and curtailed it to some degree and said there's certain lectures she can't give because they think that might endanger their federal funding, which is just baloney. I could think of a few stronger words I won't use right now, but we're going forward with it. You know, nothing will stop us. We will never surrender.
Commercial use.
Here is our hemp flame of freedom. Thank you, folks. This is hemp oil. Here it is, a little shot glass. We got hemp fiber on there. This will be next week's wick for the Hempstock Festival show next week. And this is what it's all about. This is the whole reason marijuana is illegal. It's always been about money, power, and the continued centralization
Make
of economic and political control. What?
Have Casper do the wave.
I'll have Casper do the wave.
Do the wave, Casper.
Casper wave. Come on,
He
Casper.
wants the wave, Casper. You know, some people look forward to that, I guess.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
But yeah, we're going forward. Stay tuned.
And it is all the more reason why we need the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network and programs like Cannabis Common Sense, because many people are trying to stifle the message, and they would like to, if they could, edit out the truth and make it hard for people to find out what really is going on with this plant, that you can do all kinds of wonderful things with it. And as long as they're able to keep the truth from getting into your ears, they win. But that's why we have such great programs that Paul's been working at for a long time, and many members on the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting team as well. Not necessarily this time a shameless plug, just the facts.
Okay, so I'd also like to say that this is our 19th anniversary show. Been doing Cannabis Common Sense almost every week. I think this is about show 805. And so we're working on our 20th year now, the start of our 20th year. And we'll continue to report the news and tell you about breakthroughs and continue to inform people through Casper's network, continue to help patients through our medical clinics. In fact, if you or a loved one need help finding a doctor who can help them get medical marijuana anywhere in the United States, give us a call at 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. If you're here in Portland, you can call us locally at 503-281-5100. That's 503-281-5100. If you want to come down to the Hempstock Festival or get a booth at the Hempstock Festival, go to our website at hempstock.org or call us at our office 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. There is the poster for this year. You see a little hat on the bird. That's in honor of our friend Larry Kirk, LK, who has helped on every Hempstock so far, and he unfortunately succumbed to a bout with cancer this year. And if you look at the very top, you see we've changed the color of the last two letters in honor of Larry Kirk as well. But there are other people, Sister Sativa, or Melody Silverwolf, an important member of our team, an incredible wordsmith, Rod Platt behind the camera, of course, Dr. Philip Levesque, many others who we've lost this year, Wilson Lemire, Native American invoker and person who'd supported us here at the Hempstock Festival in Portland and the Seattle Hemp Fest up there. So we honor those who go before us. There's a list. And of course, our friend Ray Crystal, who worked on our initiatives for many, many years. So we're dedicating this Hempstock in memory of these folks. So we are just about out of time. Casper, you want to tell them the website?
timeforhemp.com. Please share that with your friends. And remember, it is important to end a prohibition and to educate the people around you about why this plant is so important.
Hey, I want to thank you guys for watching. John Cornett standing by. You can come down and meet him in person at the Hempstock Festival next week. We have an exciting show for you before that. And tune in next week and help us restore hemp. Hooah!